Hello everybody and welcome along to this week's edition of the Rebel Wide Ball. I think maybe we should start this week with one or two little positive stories about the infamous or famous vaccine rollout programme. Speaking to a gentleman, he's just turned 65 on Tuesday night of this week. After a bit of a struggle, he logged onto the vaccine portal. By 3 o'clock on Wednesday, he received notification that he will get his vaccine on this Saturday at 10 to 2. Surely that has to be a fair reflection on the efficiency of this particular rollout programme. And then earlier today, I met a lady who was delighted that she had received her vaccine during the week, and without overstepping the mark, like I said, does it make an awful lot of a difference to you? You're not going to be flying to Vegas any day soon. And she just made the point that it gave her some peace of mind. So look, we live in the world where there's a lot of talk about mindfulness and all of that. Well, if this is what it does, so be it, if you like. Next week's, this expected announcement about lifting restrictions in May, well, I presume we know exactly what's coming there, in terms of that the retail outlets will be allowed to open, the hairdressing salons and the barber shops, even though if you walk down the streets of Ahiola or Lyra Compon, I doubt if you would be left with the impression that that the nation's hair was in a neglected condition or anything like that. Also construction, I think that's going to fully open up. I'm not too sure how long it has been closed down, because did I read somewhere during the week that one of these builder suppliers had posted good figures for the first quarter of this year, so I'd imagine that a lot of this construction has already started. And then another item that has caught our eye is the famous climate action bill. And obviously there's so many sides to this argument, and there are so many narratives, and there are so many personal agendas. Now, I suppose to get one thing out of the way, maybe if you wanted to increase your popularity, you stop talking about climate action at this stage. It suited a lot of us to blame the Green Party for all of this. What we blaming for them, I'm not too sure, even though I'm not a fan in any shape or form of them. But it's quite clear to all of us now, I would imagine, that major changes have to take place to save the planet. And I think it's also mindful as well to accept the changes. Some changes have already happened in that regard. So the climate action bill, first of all, it has presented an opportunity for some to push the agenda that this is a attack on rural Ireland. I would think that, okay, there may be some issues with it, but by and large, I think this can be positive for rural Ireland. If we talk about, we'll say the rollout, the broadband rollout and all of that, that's obviously going to be positive for, the climate and the changes and all of that, and also it's going to be good for the country. And there's quite an amount of talk about the work that will create in terms of retrofitting, as they call it, a lot of older buildings around the country, and I would imagine that will create a fair bit of employment. And then there's always, I think there's huge changes that have been made both in technology and in science that will bring a lot of positive can flow from this. And sometimes when you're seeing, and I notice, for example, that some of the rural TDs are absolutely gung-ho on this at the moment, right? That, this has been brought in, and they'll name all the political parties, although the Social Democrats seemingly are escaping the hammer at the moment for this. And doesn't it really suit the narrative that this is the fault of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, Sinn Féin, I don't know, whoever else is in there. But surely it is in everybody's best interest to play their part in ensuring that the planet does survive for another bit longer. And agriculture in particular, and not that I know a huge amount about it, but it strikes me that the farming community and the agricultural community and all of what that entails are really proud of what they are doing in terms of biodiversity and trying to make the place a lot better. I don't know how many of you ever studied honours biology for the Leaving Cert. Maybe it was on the past biology as well, the famous nitrogen cycle. and these beautiful nitrogen fixing bacteria that live in the little nodules of some plants, the clover plants in particular. And these guys are complete geniuses altogether, because they can, like if you look out the window there, 80% of the air is nitrogen. And that's what plants require to make protein. But anyway, in these clover plants, there's little swellings in their roots, and inside there you find these nitrogen fixing bacteria. They convert the nitrogen gas into nitrates, and the plants can use it. And now there's huge developments being made there, that when they're setting grass, if you like, there's going to be a certain amount of clover included in it. In years gone by, a field of clover was detrimental for cattle. But that's only a small thing. I mean, huge changes has taken place in technology in terms of slurry spreading and all of that. And I know, like, that if you talk to a lot of the agricultural contractors and see what they have done in terms of adding to it. So I just don't think it's dead simple to come down and say this is an attack of rural Ireland and we should all get up and bury these politicians that are involved in this. But anyway, we'll give you a bit of homework. Michael Healy-Rae has hired the services of a professional company to make a video. And by the way, it starts off at him sitting alongside a turf fire. I wouldn't mind reminding Michael that I know when people did sit alongside turf fires many, many moons ago, and that Ireland is gone, and thankfully well gone. But anyway, it's a slick production, let me tell you. It's worth watching. You might also watch Christopher O'Sullivan. He's a Fianna Fáil TD here from West Cork, and he's a guy who has a lot of interest in this whole area all his life. He's only a young fella. By these standards, he's only a young fella, and he was speaking yesterday in the Dáil about this. I thought he did quite a good job. It's probably not easy being a rural politician, but I do think that a lot of good is going to come out of this. And of course, look, there's a lot of improvements that can be made in it, but don't be fooled by the fact that this is this narrative of it nailing rural Ireland. Sometimes I get a little bit confused about those people that are trying to save it, and I'd like for them to come forward with suggestions of how it can happen. I would say COVID maybe did maybe more than a lot of people that are making a living out of fighting for so-called rural Ireland. But anyway, that was that. By the way, we mentioned to you last week about Sinn Féin and their gathering of information on the people of the country. Well, it would appear now that their database is in Germany. I don't know why that is the case. I'm sure we'll be informed. Was there any room here in Ireland that could have stored a bit of whatever stuff they had? I'd say it must be fairly extensive. But I'm sure that we'll be talking more about that later on. Well, the world of sport was rocked, by the way. Last Sunday evening was announced that 16 clubs that play, I think, in England, Spain and Italy were going to set up a European Super League, and this caused a certain amount of consternation. Why it was a surprise to so many people is beyond me. Do people not realise what professional sport is all about? It's a money-making organisation, the same as any industry. And the people that own these clubs, like, they bought them, they paid from, the fans bought into it, they bought the jerseys, City till I die, Scott the Glint till I live, all of that. And what else did you expect? I'm not saying what else did you expect, but I mean, where the real money is going to be made in all of this is in Asia, where there are billions of people. No, they reckon that an Asian would prefer, I don't know whether they would or not, to be watching maybe Liverpool and Real Madrid rather than Burnley and West Bromwich Albion. So anyway, the Sky then came on board, and these were going to be, this is when it got really good. The Sky were the purveyors of all that is fair and all that is good. And all they were interested in is lining their own pockets, obviously. Anyway, there was so much of a backlash that it has now collapsed. But has it really? Because you can be sure that these clubs, they're going to get more of the money than they were getting before now. FIFA were also involved in this, and they went absolutely ballistic altogether, despite the fact that they had increased the size of the Champions Leagues to 36 teams, which means there'd be 100 more matches played. And what's all that about? Dosh, my friends. They did make one mistake though, the Premier League, the Super League. They should have brought in maybe Wolves or, I can't say Leeds now, but some crowd like that so that they could hammer them every year and they'd be relegated. They should be like the if you follow the Cork Casino holders are going to be taking part in the league in a couple of weeks' time, and this is the best league of all time. Nobody's going to win it unless there's two sections, 1A and 1B, and if the top team in each section meet in a championship later on, they'll play on for one winner. But in the two groups, there is relegation. But like none of the big guys are going to go down because there's a couple of teams in there that'll be hammered in every match. And in Cork's group, which is made up of who's in there, Limerick, Tipperary, who's there now? Limerick, Tipperary, Galway, Westmeath. There's somebody else now that escapes my mind for a second. Oh, Waterford, my apologies to the Waterford folk. But Westmeath are in there. Everybody will beat Westmeath, and they'll end up down at the bottom of that group, and they'll play either Laois or Antrim, who are the whipping boys in the other one. But that's the mistake that the Super League made. Somebody said, can you imagine if it had happened in GA? Well, I'd nearly argue that it did. And were it not for the dining habits of Wuhan Wanderers, who knows, we were heading in the real wrong direction. Because the inter-county scene in what were they doing up to last year? They brought in more in the county matches. Every single extra match at inter-county level is less matches for the club. 98% of the players being pushed out, disregarded, and what have you. They brought in the Super 8s and they brought in the round robin and hurling. Then Wuhan came into play and that sorted it out, and nothing else did. So at least now the GA are back on track, and there's a separate section, please God, next year, maybe not this year. So don't think that this was just that the head buckos in soccer were involved in this. So too were, to a much lesser degree, actions that were going to lead to the demise of GA, I think, was well underway. Anyway, what matches we got to entertain us this weekend? Back to the Premier League. Does anybody care any more about that? Leicester play West Bromwich Albion tonight. They're up there on the top. Maybe we have a few fans. On Friday night, then Arsenal, who were one of these clubs that were heading off to become richer, play Everton. Nobody asked them to take part. And then on Saturday, Liverpool take on Newcastle. And my God, those Liverpool, the players and the manager, they were quickly to distance themselves from this. Liverpool play Newcastle, and West Ham, who were very disappointing last week, the West Ham supporters take on Chelsea, fifth play fourth. And then on Sunday, Manchester United play Leeds. And every time, since I mentioned Leeds on this piece of a broadcast, they've been absolutely flying, beating Man City, drawing with Liverpool, and who knows now, Manchester United could be the next to fall when they meet on Sunday. In Division 1 of the League of Ireland, and the two Cork clubs here, it has to be said, are struggling. Even though Cove Ramblers had a good win last weekend, they play Wanderers on Saturday at 7 o'clock, and on Friday at 7:45, it's Cork City against the new team, Treaty United. And like Cork City are only 3 from bottom. They would seriously want to get their act together and start winning some of those matches. In rugby, it's incredible. The Rainbow Cup is back in action, even though it's not going to happen. I don't know how long I can explain this to you, but anyway, we had at the start of the year we had the Pro 14, which was the teams from England, Scotland, and Wales, plus 2 from South Africa. The South Africans come, so Pro 14 became Pro 12. That was played off, and Leinster beat Munster again. I think it was the 6th time in a row they beat them. Then they were going to bring in basically 4 teams from South Africa, 4 from Ireland, 4 from Wales, 2 from Scotland, and for hammering, they're bringing in the Italians. That was supposed to be happening. That's now not taking place because the 4 South African teams are not coming, but it's still going on, and it's going to be, I don't know what's called, a Pro 16 or the Rainbow Cup, but there's going to be Rainbow Cup, not the Railway Cup. There's going to be 12 teams in it, and for a start anyway, whether to live or finish, the teams in each country will play each other. So the next couple of weekends we're going to have inter-provincials back again, and Munster play Leinster. And this game goes on at Saturday evening in the RDS at 7:35. if Munster don't win this one, because Leinster surely are not going to be that interested in it. They have a big match coming up the week after against Ronan O'Gara's team, La Rochelle, in the Champions Cup semi-final. So I would imagine this is going to be Munster's. They have nothing to lose whatsoever. They'll have all their players, and I would expect them, after several attempts, to win this one. By the way, Ulster play Connacht. And then finally, my friends, the national ladies rugby team, they play the Italians. You remember they got right hocking last week against France, and that was to be expected. Like, French are semi-professional, Ireland and all of them, have jobs to go to. But by the way, they're playing Italy now. It was meant to be in Parma on this Saturday. It's now moved. The Italians are flying over, so they play at 1 o'clock in Donnybrook for the they call it the third or fourth spot. Like, the top spot is going to be between England and France. So until we meet again, take care and mind yourself.